Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this video I'm going to take a look at the top 14 best Hearthstone decks to climb the ladder all the way to Legend. And compared to last week, 9 of the decks are exactly the same as they were last week. There are 5 decks that are at least somewhat different. One archetype has changed, so I have dropped Curse Imp Warlock from the list. Curse Imp Warlock is still capable of roughly 50% win rate, maybe a little bit above, but the meta is not quite favorable to it right now, so I just can't really recommend it. And I have raised one new archetype that has been played now and received a new life of a sort that is now added to the list. So let's take a look at what are the top 14 decks. At number 14 we have Thief Rogue. Thief Rogue is now kind of overshadowed by Miracle Rogue because Miracle Rogue is super strong at the moment. However, Thief Rogue has at least one thing going for it. And that one thing is that it's strong against Control Paladin. I'm going to talk about Control Paladin a couple of times probably in this video, because Control Paladin is a rising deck. Last week I featured Control Paladin in the video, and I said, okay, we don't quite have enough data to say that, okay, is this really a deck or not? Now we have enough data to say that Control Paladin is really a deck. We still don't have enough data to say that is it a tier 1 deck, maybe even. Well, I'll talk more about that later. But Thief Rogue has good matchup against Control Paladin, and that's something that Miracle Rogue doesn't have, and that might give Thief Rogue a better chance in the near future as Control Paladin numbers increase. And at number 13 we have Enrage Warrior. Enrage Warrior is a curious one, because right now the most popular and it looks like the most effective Enrage Warrior list is this old list. This is pre-March of the Lich King Enrage Warrior instead of the Lich King Enrage Warrior. So alright, did much of the Lich King really provide that many tools for Enrage Warrior? Maybe it didn't. That's actually interesting. I wish we had bigger sample sizes, because it's still, the number of games played with Enrage Warrior are so low that it's real hard to make sense of it all. But it looks like the old Enrage Warrior might be better than the new Enrage Warrior. We'll see. And at number 12 we have that new archetype, an archetype that hasn't been on this list during this expansion. It is Face Hunter. Then again, Face Hunter is the weakest of the 3 main Hunter archetypes, because both Beast Hunter and Shockspitter Hunter are stronger than Face Hunter. And can you really call this Face Hunter? I guess you sort of can. I mean, it's a deck that runs Aralon and Beastalker Tavish, and that is some pretty slow cards right there. But other than that, it does play like Face Hunter plays, so it tries to get minions on the board early, then it tries to get some buffs on those minions, and then use that minion power to win games. Another fun thing, a deck that is called Face deck, and there's an Astalor Bloodstone in this, and Astalor is one of the best cards in this deck, because, yeah, I guess Astalor nerf is coming pretty soon, I hope. At number 11 we have Imp Warlock. Imp Warlock is now the stronger one. Curse Imp Warlock slightly slower and slightly weaker in this meta. Imp Warlock is also not doing the best it has ever done, but I mean, it's still, you play some imps, just chill, play some imps, and remember to add Astalor Bloodstone into your deck. You could use Sylvanas as well. The Sylvanas version is like 0.2% below this in performance, and that is within the margin of error, so technically it's not possible to say that the Astalor version is better than the Sylvanas version, but it does look like the Astalor version is slightly stronger. Well, just add Astalor in the mix and boom, off we go. At number 10 we have Frost Death Knight. Frost Death Knight is still a strong deck. Just Frost Death Knight, there's not been much innovation around Frost Death Knight. I don't think there's a lot of room to improve the list. And then the meta is a little bit less favorable for Frost Death Knight, because Face Hunter is good against it, Control Paladin is good against it. Both of the recent newcomers are actually strong against Frost Death Knight, and that means that even though the deck hasn't changed and it still has plenty of strength, it still has plenty of burst damage, but it's just slightly falling down ranks. And at number 9 we have Pure Paladin. This time it's a Pure Paladin list with Carrier Roam included again. Last week I featured a list without Carrier Roam. And we'll see. This one does not have the mech package in it, and Cariel seems to perform slightly better in the list that doesn't run the mech package, so maybe this is the right way to build Pure Paladin. Anyway, the differences are quite minor, and Pure Paladin is a fine deck. And at number 8 we have Aggro Mage. Nothing has changed with Aggro Mage since last week. Still a very aggressive deck, still strong against many of the good decks in the meta, but also has a bunch of weaknesses, including weakness against Control Paladin, which is getting kind of awkward with those Control Paladins now swarming on the ladder. This also means that Big Spell Mage is better than Aggro Mage. Also, Big Spell Mage has one major upside for the thinking in the future, 1 week, 2 weeks in the future. Well, we don't know when the balance changes are coming, those can also change things, of course. But with the current card pool, Big Spell Mage having a favorable matchup against Control Paladin might actually be important. So, yeah, Big Spell Mage. And the Beast Hunter is the 6th best deck in the game. No changes to the list still. There have been some interesting attempts lately with Beast Hunter using the new legendary weapon from March of the Lich King, and I think that that legendary weapon is eventually going to replace Lortimer Theron from this list. Maybe some other changes may come as well, but right now we still don't have enough data about those bow lists, so I'm not sure. I would still play with this. Actually, I would probably play with the bow list, but just because I want to play with some new cards. But this is still the list that has the most samples, and this is still the list that has the best performance according to the data that we have available. And Evolve Shaman just keeps gaining ranks week after week. No changes to the list again, but I mean, it just feels like it keeps getting better without changing any cards. Neptune Tidehunter, Shadowhunter Vol'jin, Evolve stuff, that's pretty good. No changes to Quest Spell Demon Hunter list either, it's just a reasonably strong deck. Behind Miracle Rogue, this is the second most popular deck, very high on the ladder, because this is seen as one of the only answers to Miracle Rogue. But it's starting to become questionable whether Spell Demon Hunter can even answer Miracle Rogue anymore, because Miracle Rogue performance against it just seems to improve week after week. And finally, at number 3, we arrive to Control Paladin. I'm pretty bullish on Control Paladin at the moment, because Control Paladin is strong against many of the very common meta decks, and its weaknesses. It has basically 3 weaknesses that we can see from the data. Big Spell Mage, Thief Rogue, and Ramp Druid. And Ramp Druid is not a viable deck at the moment, but if Control Paladin becomes much more common, and Ramp Druid is actually its best counter, then that could result in a meta where Control Paladin is getting countered by Ramp Druid, and some of these old decks are countering Ramp Druid but losing to Control Paladin, so we may end up with a slightly enlarged pool of Rock, Paper, Scissors meta compared to what we have today. But be that as it may, right now, if those Miracle Rogues, Quest Demon Hunters are bothering you, Control Paladin would just be the answer. But with the current sample size of Control Paladin, I didn't quite dare to put it in top 2. The top 2 is unchanged from last week. Shockspitter Hunter, the same list as always, still shocking the world. Very strong deck, the most popular deck on the climb to Legend. In Legend, Shockspitter Hunter numbers start to fall down a little bit, but it's fast, it's reliable, it's strong. What is there not to like? And the number 1 deck in the game, it's still Miracle Rogue. Miracle Rogue is just really, really strong. The differences between various Miracle Rogue lists are quite minor, and they're typically focused around Serrated Bone Spike. This list that currently seems to be performing the best runs 1 copy of Serrated Bone Spike. Then there's a list that doesn't run any copies but runs Krakatoa instead. That's also doing fine. Then there's a list that cuts a Door of Shadows in order to run 2 copies of Serrated Bone Spike. That looks like a mistake. Serrated Bone Spike just isn't that strong. So, as you can see, Miracle Rogue lists, it's about cutting 1 card, cutting 2 cards, changing just tiny pieces, and those make small differences in performance, but overall the archetype is just incredibly powerful. And the only consistent weakness that Miracle Rogue seems to have is against Control Paladin. And that's also why I'm so bullish right now about Control Paladin, because countering Miracle Rogue, if that can really happen over real large sample sizes. We currently have like a couple of thousand games of Control Paladin played on the ladder. If that happens still when Control Paladin has played a couple of thousand games against Rogue itself, then, well, then we're really talking. But we'll have to wait and see for another week to see just how good it's going to be. Or if any of these considerations will even be relevant, because we know that the Battlegrounds balance patch is coming on Tuesday. And last year, the standard balance changes were in the same patch. They were not announced beforehand to keep Battlegrounds hype up. Will that happen this time as well? Will we get balance changes already on Tuesday? We'll see. It's exciting times. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.